It was very inefficient to have three different organizations essentially doing the same thing, but doing it maybe a little bit differently.
You had three different model code organizations that actually believed that their code was the best code.
There's a natural level of competitiveness.
Oh yeah, we ran against egos all the time.
There was resistance in what's this organization and why do we need to change?
There was a lot of give and take, a lot of give and take.
30 years ago, the path was unclear, the outcome uncertain. This is the story of how three separate organizations put aside their differences for priorities larger than themselves, setting a selfless standard which has been met by those that followed, and revolutionizing the industry by creating the leading authority in building codes and safety solutions around the world. This is the International Code Council's 30th anniversary. The International Code Council is 30, but we're celebrating a legacy that began 100 years ago. Actually, even before that.
Hammurabi was the first building code, and it was pretty concise. There were some severe penalties for failure to comply. As we went down through the years and we got lax in terms of our code administration and enforcement, building kind of got out of hand and we saw the disasters that could happen. Many of the early fires that we experienced in the United States, which caused the Institute of Fire Insurance underwriters to come together.
1927 was the first edition of the Uniform Building Code, which was a regional uniformity demand.
Some of the early things they regulated were the heights of chimneys and thatched roofs, and they were very, very focused on fire prevention.
In the early 20th century, three regional associations began to emerge around the country, each with their own distinct set of building codes.
BUCA International is the Building Officials Code Administrators International, which was the primary from the northeastern and midwestern United States. And then there was Southern Building Code Congress International. It serviced the southern states. And then there was the International Conference of Building Officials out of California, which served the western part of the United States.
The regional model codes had limitations. They were designed for specific regions in geographic areas. Well, as I determined when I joined BOCA in 1969, there are 4 building codes on the shelf. And I wondered, why would that be? I talked to my boss, and he said, well, that's just the way things develop, geographically oriented. I said, well, are things that much different geographically? Not really. And I thought to myself, gee whiz, there's an opportunity here.
Snow loads, if it's 40 pounds per square foot, it doesn't matter where it's 40 pounds, it would be applicable. And then in terms of wind speeds, they'd be the same. So you don't need 3 different codes. You could consolidate all those into one set of codes that would be applicable across the United States.
The pressures to do something collectively among the 3 model code groups turns back to the point where we created the Council of American Building Officials, CABO.
CABO was also very instrumental in developing the first test of what a single set of model codes may look like when it developed the CABO 1 and 2 family dwelling code.
CABO proved they could work together. That was reinforced when the organizations again collaborated to release the groundbreaking accessibility standard A117, which showed the industry how it could meet the Americans with Disabilities Act. With the groundwork fully laid for cooperation, it was time to take the next step.
Industry started a discussion about the need for a single set of model codes that were consistent and coordinated. It was clear that the United States could not support 3 organizations and bring the recognition and proper investments to improving code enforcement, the codes, as well as the industries. Our country's not that large.
In late 1993, had a conversation with Paul about creating an organization by which we might start the effort to produce a single set of codes. We'd have to have a name for the organization. So Paul and I threw some terms out. It wasn't necessarily uncontentious, let's say, as you can imagine, because international was a part of ICBO's name. But I told Paul, we have a global influence already. We shouldn't lose that. What we were dealing with was codes, and rather it wasn't a conference, but we were like a council. So you get International Code Council.
With Paul and John leading BOCA and ICBO towards a unified set of codes, one organization remained, SBCCI, often referred to as Southern, which was led by their CEO, Bill Tange.
When our CEO came to us and said, SBCCI is having a conversation with BOCA and ICBO to create a single set of model codes, I thought it was a great idea. Not everyone was so excited. Frankly, there was some trepidation, some concern about losing identity.
Despite reservations, work on a single set of codes began. But where to start?
They identified the plumbing code because there were regional differences in plumbing that really didn't make a lot of sense. They felt that they could bring the experts to the table to figure out how to develop an international plumbing code that could work not just here in the US, but around the world.
It was the perfect development process, and with the hearings, everyone got to voice their complaints, contest them, offer changes, and the assembled members would vote, do we want that or not?
Sometimes it was contentious, sometimes it was very easy. And at the end of the day, though, it was kind of fun because we learned a lot more about each other as we were working together to bring ICC about.
I enjoyed going to the hearings to see the spirited debate, and also what impressed me the most was the transparency. The number of people that attended them was phenomenal. To me, is to witness that, it's unprecedented.
In 1995, the International Plumbing Code was released, garnering national attention. The rest of the international codes, or I-codes, would follow. In 2000, the set was complete, and many dreams were realized, one in particular.
A hero in all this is a guy named Bob Fowler for Abilene, Texas. At no expense to anyone other than him, he came to our annual conferences and directed a very persuasive argument for a singular code activity.
In the history of building codes, there have been no other advancements in code development quite as dramatic as the advent of the international codes.
The I-codes are the pinnacle, from my perspective, of how we protect our communities, how we provide for economic growth in our communities, and how we make sure that all the civil rights of citizens are carried out within the built environment.
Once you have a single set of codes, it would only be natural to assume at that point in time that the duplications of staffs and activities perhaps would come under question.
We're gathered here today after an awful lot of hard work to mark the creation of a unified international code council.
On February 1st, 2003, BOCA, ICBO, and Southern merged.
Each and every one of us gathered here today, representatives of BOCA, ICBO, and Southern, I call upon all of you to look on this day as a celebration of your organization's extraordinary commitment to public safety.
I'd say I'd express maybe two words, excitement and trepidation. The excitement was the possibility to think that ICC, this organization, would be able to be both a global organization and be able to provide services and uniformity of services and codes throughout the United States and hopefully beyond our borders. I think that was exciting. Trepidation because you always wonder, each person wonders, how do I fit into this new entity? What's my role? Am I going to even be part of it?
It was about letting each organization find its own identity again and making sure that no one entity dominated. And so there was a lot of give and take, But I will give a lot of credit. There were 3 CEOs who believed in what was happening. At least 2 of them, as I say, worked themselves out of a job. And I think we owe them a great debt of gratitude, all 3 of them.
Bill Tange was selected as the first CEO of the International Code Council. Paul Heilstedt retired in 2002. John Traur remains active in the industry, currently serving as a consultant. After successfully leading the Code Council through its early days, Bill Tangy sadly passed away in 2002. With the I-codes and unification of the Code Council complete, it was full steam ahead to get the I-codes adopted. For that, a new force was unleashed.
I didn't ask the right questions, I guess, when I was interviewed, because when I joined ICC, my office was empty. There was not a single Rolodex, not a single file. So rather than get intimidated, I looked at it as an opportunity. I had a blank slate, and I realized soon after I joined ICC that my work was going to be a lot with state and local governments. My team has always abided by no lies, no misleading, because you lie to a lawmaker once, they'll never forget.
Key to Sarah's success was not only selling the I-codes, but a lasting relationship.
ICC didn't just go in and say, hey, adopt our model codes and then we're out of here, good luck. We said, we are going to be your partner. So you adopt the I-codes, ICC will be here to support everybody, not just the code enforcement community, but the architects and the engineers and others who needed the training as well.
Today, the I-codes are adopted in all 50 states and in some form over 59 countries around the world. But the I-codes are not static. The entire set is updated on a 3-year cycle, maintaining incredible flexibility to react to innovations in materials, technology, and design, and other events, both natural and man-made.
This just in, you are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
Unfortunate events of 9/11 really helped drive the city forward to look at its building code. Evacuation issues, the width of the stairwell was one way, and then elevators also. So there was a lot going on in New York after 9/11 that was going to have an impact on the I-codes.
I wouldn't believe that wind alone could do that, but it is absolute devastation.
I lived through Andrew. I was a few miles away from the center, but Andrew was another one of those moments where you knew something was going to change. The leaders in Florida came together and said, our codes are good, but they could be better. So based on the international codes, the Florida Building Code is known around the world for having very rigorous requirements when it comes to high winds and the ability for buildings to withstand a hurricane.
While the I-codes adapt, they continue to establish a higher baseline for creating structures that can survive disasters and protect those inside.
We've seen incidents, whether it's the earthquake recently in Turkey or other events. We've seen the devastation. And to know that here in America and in other parts of the world that use our codes, we're seeing those events are mitigated.
As the I-codes adjust to evolving conditions, the Code Council has also adapted, expanding into many areas to better serve the built environment by creating a family of solutions.
We identified, okay, what are the other things that building safety professionals need to do their jobs better or more efficient?
One of the key needs of the building safety community is product evaluation.
You don't want the code to be a barrier to progress. And that's where ES comes in, where if there's an innovative building system or product, they can evaluate that for meeting the performance criteria that's in our codes. So I think it's imperative to ensure basically innovation, and also to make sure that our codes don't become barriers to progress and don't become a detriment to our economy.
We have been able to address the built environment with codes and standards, with product evaluation, with laboratory accreditation, expert advice and consultation, with testing and certification of personnel, and training and education. So we figured out that in order to achieve true safety in the built environment, you have to be able to address the entire built environment.
With 8 subsidiaries, over 700 employees, and around 60,000 members, the International Code Council has grown from an idea into the most important building safety organization in the world.
I'm immensely proud of ICC. I'm immensely proud of the members. The members are excellent people, good people, people that really care about public safety and doing the right thing.
We're faced with a housing shortage and affordability. Well, ICC is part of that discussion, and we want to help the industry figure out how to build better, safer, and more affordable homes.
We used to look at buildings, and we tried to protect our buildings from natural disasters or from nature. Now we're looking at it more from how do we protect our buildings and citizens against nature, but how we can protect nature against our buildings.
What drives me? Probably the staff. You know, I feel a certain amount of loyalty because I know they've been loyal to the mission.
To have been given the opportunity to represent the organization, what a privilege. It was a wonderful, wonderful career. I couldn't have asked for better.
I feel gratified that I was able to be a part of it.
We had obstacles we had to overcome, and that was understood and known, expected. We did it.
While there are times when we think things are impossible to accomplish, with a little bit of vision, mountains can be moved.